Hello and welcome to this Friday late lunch on how to stay focused in a world full of distractions. I'm Michelle Anthony. I'm going to be with you for about 15 minutes. Whilst people are filtering in, I do have a confession to make, and that is that this late lunch live is actually pre recorded. Why? I'm at an in person event all day, and I didn't want to use that as an excuse not to put this out, nor did I know whether there'd be a quiet space at the event that I could squirrel myself into to record this with you live. However, I will respond to any questions or comments as soon as I can, even if that means doing it over the weekend. So today I'm going to take about 15 minutes of your time. We're going to look at the problem with distractions in the modern workplace and then into about 6 different techniques that I use. There are many more. And then I'll finish off telling you a little bit about what I do and how you can continue the conversation. So let's get started. I've worked in a hybrid way for at least the last 6, 7 years. The reason being that when I was in the office, my lovely ex-colleagues, especially when I headed up digital data, would henpeck me all the time. Normally with questions that they could find answers to in the server, normally with questions that they already knew the answer to, they just wanted a bit of reassurance. And that meant that it was kind of pulling me out of whatever I was doing at the time, and it would take me a little bit to get back into where I was focus wise. And I know that I'm not alone. So, on average, the normal office worker gets interrupted about every 11 minutes. And studies vary, but it can, well, they say it can take up to 20 to 25 minutes to regain that focus. Now, University College of Irvine went even further. They said that on average, we're either interrupted or we change our tasks every 3 minutes. The culmination of all that time that it takes us to get back into flow means that we can lose up to 6 hours of productivity a day. Imagine what you could do if you found a way to get back 6 hours of productive work. And that's not to mention our mobile phone pings. I had an old colleague who used to tell me that it takes 6 minutes, even if your phone vibrates, or if you just see the notification pop up and you don't look at it, to get your focus back. And on average, our phones go off 146 times a day, roughly once every 10 minutes. It's higher if you're millennial, it's higher if you're Gen Z, and it's higher if it happens to be Thursday, when it goes up to over 200 notifications. Obviously, those Thursday night drinks take some planning. So let's look at a few productivity plays that you could use even this afternoon to help you get into flow and help you get that focus work done. The first is monastic monotasking. What do I mean by this? I mean removing distractions from your environment, finding a place which is quiet for you to focus. If you're in a busy office, that might be headphones on. For me, I find it easier to focus with music. I've resorted to white noise in the past when I've been in a loud office and just needed some interference between me and other people's voices. But typically, I will listen to binaural beats, ambient techno. When I was at uni, I needed to stay away from lyrics. Otherwise, I would hum them, sing them, rather than read what I needed to read. And that meant that I ended up listening to a lot of classical music. What do I mean by monastic? I mean really cut off from distractions, akin to that monastery up in the hills. There are different types of monotasking, and monastic monotasking has now come to mean being able to focus on those high impact tasks and shut everything down. Now, for most of us, it just is not realistic for us to say no to everything that comes across our desk in the day so that we can only focus on what we had planned when we started out. That's where the other types of monotasking come in. One of them being bimodal, which again is not going to work for everybody. But bimodal says, actually, I'm going to do this for a time frame. Maybe it's a week, maybe it's a month, and maybe it's a day that I just focus on this one thing. The example that Cal Newport uses in his book Deep Work is going into a cabin in the woods to focus on writing a novel. That's what your focus is day in, day out, and you're cut off from the normal distractions of the world around you. What's far more practical is either rhythmic, which is the type that I like, or journalistic. So, rhythmic means that you get into a bit of a rhythm with it. Perhaps you have 2 hours of focus time in the morning, then some shallow work, check emails, respond to LinkedIn messages, have a chat with somebody, and then back into some focus work and another chunk of shallow work towards the end. So, you start building this into your week and making it repeatable and easy. The last type that I am not a fan of, but you can now get AI programs to help out with this, is journalistic monotasking. And that's the idea that, like, oh, maybe you got a 4 o'clock meeting, it was an hour long, and now it's been cancelled. You have just rescued an hour of your day back. What do you want to do within that time? That's what the AI helps with. The reason that I'm not the biggest fan of journalistic is because I don't want to have my day reliant upon things getting cancelled for me to be the most productive. And then there's the myth of multitasking. We simply do not get more done by trying to do it all at the same time. In fact, the mental load of multitasking means that it can take us 40% longer to get the same task done than if we did them one by one. Not only that, if we try and do two things at the same time, we might do them faster, but we're likely to do them with less accuracy. That means typos and small little errors that we would have otherwise picked up. Now, let's say that you work in software development. That might be the difference between an error getting picked up in testing and then going into the production environment and having to send that embarrassing comms out to your customers that you need to roll back. So that is the myth of multitasking and why I recommend getting as close to monastic monotasking as you can. Now, when I talked about that rhythmic way of dividing up your day into chunks, it ties in really nicely with the notion of eating the frog. And this comes from a Brian Tracy book with the same title, Eat the Frog. And his premise is that you get that big, ugly task done when you have the most energy. And for most people, that's the beginning of the day. So you don't start your day checking emails, notifications, and everything else. You launch straight into, I'm going to spend an hour or so on this big thing, and then I will feel like I've accomplished something. The rest of the day becomes easier and less stressful because I've got a win early on. That's the notion of eating the frog. Sorry, froggy. And it sits really nicely with this idea of the power of intention. By setting our intention, it gives us that North Star to aim towards. And I liken this to putting a destination into a sat nav. Not only does it give you the direction and the impetus to get there, but it tells you how far you can get in the allotted time. And it makes you think about how long do you really need to complete this task. Like, I couldn't walk to Manchester from London in a day. I could probably get to the other side of London. And if I really wanted to walk it, say I was on a health kick, then actually it's that idea of like, how far can I get? How long do I need? What do I need to do to make progress towards that? That's the beauty of setting intentions. Or we can kind of use a cheat code to keep us focused when our motivation drops and get somebody else involved. So this harks back to that lovely proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone, and if you want to go far, go together. An accountability buddy can keep you on track when your motivation drops, as well as saying it out loud. Having that other person that you need to explain why you have or haven't done something works wonders. I hate running, and through lockdown, I did it because it was in my diary, and that kept me accountable. If it was a Tuesday or Thursday, I got out and I went. I don't really like the idea of running with somebody else, but I do know that if I was to enlist my next door neighbour and be like, okay, 7 o'clock, let's go. And it comes to 7 o'clock and I just cannot be bothered to get out from under the sheets, I'm going to feel pretty guilty if she's got up and is on my doorstep in her gym shorts, ready to go. So that's the beauty of having somebody else to check in with you, check that progress, and keep you on the path to your destination. The other technique that I have relied upon, especially for things that I don't really like doing. So when I worked in apprenticeships, loved coaching people one on one, hated the admin. It's not my happy place. The way that I got through that was to Pomodoro my time, by which I mean chunk it into blocks of 25 minutes that I could focus for. This technique gets its name from the tomato timers that you can see in the image there, the old style 50s ones. Really, it's looking at doing something deeply for 25 minutes, then take a 5 minute break. You'll sometimes see people lump two together, so do 50 minutes and then a 10-minute break. And you do this 4 times before you take a half-hour break. So it also gives your brain a little bit of relief, um, so that you can come back to being focused and you're not burning yourself out. Love the Pomodoro technique. It's one that I employ more often than I should. And then lastly, body doubling. So the beauty of body doubling is that we are social creatures, and this works through our mirror neurons. Mirror neurons. So in reality, it can look a lot like being dialed into a Zoom call with lots of other people all doing their own thing. And this works because our brains see other people in flow, so it's easier for us to get into a flow state ourselves. If you want to read more about it, then look up Jean Piaget and parallel play, and you'll see that it's kind of built on this notion that kids play deeper and longer and more engaged, even if they're playing with their own toys, but they're side by side. So we've looked at body doubling, the Pomodoro technique, getting an accountability buddy, setting an intention, eating the frog, and monotasking. Let me know what works for you. I would love to know if you have employed these or if you do employ them. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about myself, what I do, and why. So I'm a coach to the tech sector. My background is in customer facing and quota carrying roles in the tech sector. And I did that up until I joined the management team of a UK SaaS company. I then changed the focus of my career to developing others as a sales trainer and skills coach, as a professional development coach at a software development bootcamp, and then in revenue enablement at a hyperscale SaaS company. At the end of last year, I set up my own coaching practice to focus on what I love, which is helping other people get more out of their work life. Why work life? Well, we spend a third of our life at work. The old stat is 90,000 hours, and that's from a 2010 book by Jessica Price Jones. It's likely gone up now. My view is that if we can increase workplace well-being, happier people treat other people better, we can increase the overall vibration and make the world just a little easier to live in. Before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. And I want to leave you in a place of gratitude. So if you project forward to the end of your day, what will you be grateful for? When you close your computer or your head hits the pillow, what will you thank yourself for doing, seeing, being, or experiencing today? Hopefully, that gratitude you'll carry in to make you more productive. Thank you, Again, if you want to reach out to me, you can do so and DM me or get in touch at michelleanthony.co.uk. Thank you very much. I look forward to speaking to you. Bye now.